Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much again for your ongoing support. Today's video is a performance review in the Cinephile tier, and the winner this month is, drumroll please, John Cassavetes' performance in Edge of the City, which I have here on a TCM box set. I really love these box sets. Edge of the City was directed by Martin Ritt, and it was written by Robert Allen Arthur. And it also starred, as I said, Sidney Poitier and Jack Warden, Ruby Dee, and Kathleen Macguire. What's so fascinating about Cassavetes in this role is that from everything that is known about his personality, from people who have worked with him as a director or a writer or other collaborators of his, other actors, he was a man who was so confident, so fearless, temperamental to an extent, and a real sense of humor. And, you know, when you watch him in this film, this guy is nothing like what John actually is. I mean, he plays a character who is essentially ran away from the war, and he's on the run, and he's very fearful, and he's very cowardly, and he's not very brave. And if you look at Cassavetes' face, you know, he has a very sort of devilish look about him. So it's interesting that they even thought of him for this. At the time, his career was really on the up and up. He was in Crime in the Streets in 1956. He was in a number of live television shows. And I believe he still had to screen test for this with Sidney Poitier. And the writer or the director, something along those lines, knew that, or it may have been their agent, because I believe they had a mutual agent, told them to rehearse for a while before the screen test, Poitier and Cassavetes. So they were really ready for this screen test. But John is wonderful in it. He has this great monologue where he talks about, with Sidney Poitier, how he talks about a lot of things that he's done wrong in his life, and things that he's ashamed of, and where he lacked courage. And it's quite remarkable, particularly the conversations he has with his parents on the phone every time, you know, they know what he's done, and every time he calls home, he can barely answer. He can't even speak to his father. He can only speak to his mother, and he's not a brave guy, you know. And basically, you know, later on in the film, when Sidney Poitier is killed, this also really heavily explores racism, and he's killed by Carl Malden, and that's when, even then, he's at a loss of what to do, and he's afraid to tell what really happened, you know, because he was afraid that he was going to get killed. You know, they're working on the docks. It's a somewhat of a corrupt system with some heavy handers working around there. But he eventually takes it into his own hands and basically has this big brawl with Malden, and beats him up at the end. But the film essentially is about cowardice, and exploring friendship, love in friendship, and how people can help you change for the better. And it's a fascinating, really interesting, really, you know, a remarkable film, and everybody in it is great. But it's certainly a part that you didn't really see John play outside of his own films that he directed and wrote. He played a lot of tough guys, you know, a lot of heavies, and this is something that's really, really different. And you didn't even really see this side of him in the films that he wrote that he was in, which are not necessarily heavy guys, but perhaps more, you know, masculine sort of men. And in this film, he's a guy who's totally afraid, and that was not John at all. A big aspect of Cassavetes' character in this is that he's a guy who's constantly bullied. And the reason he tells Poitier as to why he ran away from the army is because he was being bullied. And now he's being bullied in the workforce by Carl Malden. And as he says, there's always someone hassling him. And again, that was nothing like Cassavetes. He was not someone you could intimidate or bully. And he was a tough guy. So for that reason alone, it's worth seeing. But this isn't just about his performance. The film is fantastic. So if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend it. And again, Cassavetes, wonderful. Thank you so much, folks. I hope that you've enjoyed this review, performance review. Thank you for voting, and I will see you in the next video.